Okay, so Stephen A. Smith says that all indications are civil war is right around the corner. Okay, we're going to talk about that. Stephen A's, I think he's kind of lost the plot on this one, but I'll give my opinion on this piece. This was his response after Trump's guilty verdict. Then, of course, right after that guilty verdict, Trump sets the single-day donation record for a political candidate. It was massive, and if you watched his video, or his speech, rather, when he came out right after his guilty verdict, he was reading off the donations, and he blew that number out of the water. So even that's not an accurate number. It was crazy. Then Hillary Clinton, she's out gloating about Trump being in prison while she walks free, because we know that everything Hillary Clinton has done over the years is well above board. Alex Soros, so the young son of George Soros, is already started telling the Democrat Party, hey, here's what your messaging needs to be. Go with this message all the way through November, and they will, like obedient little lemmings, they will follow what Alex Soros tells them. And then we're going to take an interesting turn and talk about the Libertarian Party. So that party that is normally way over towards the Constitution, sometimes they get into some real dicey territory as far as that's concerned. But you would think that would be the most conservative of conservative people. Nope. They gave us an example now of how leftism has infected every political party. Every single one has now been infected because they put a leftist as their candidate. We're going to talk about this and so much more. Thank you all for being here. I'm Jared. This is Continue Freedom. Let's go. And welcome back to Continue Freedom. If this is your first time here, welcome aboard. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave comments below. I'm going to emphasize the liking, subscribing, and commenting because that really helps with the engagement on my videos. So whether you like me, you hate me, I'd love to see your comments and I'd love to hear from you. So let's go ahead and get into this. Stephen A. Smith, oopsie, I put up the wrong one. We'll talk about Gerald here in a minute. So Stephen A. Smith reacts to Trump's guilty verdict and says that it all points to civil war. This is a quote from him. It says, "It all points to civil war in this country," Smith said. "We're all pawns. We're all subject to the mercy of politicians who find a way to manipulate the system and ultimately manipulate us. That's a concern I had before January 6th when the U.S. Capitol was stormed by a bunch of Trump supporters. I've had it ever since. I have it now because Trump is not going to go away quietly." So some of this stuff, yeah, I get valid point. We are all being manipulated. This is a huge manipulation scheme by the federal government, by the Uni-party, by the coordinated Democrat media, which is what we can call all mainstream media for the most part. He goes on to say, it ain't about Trump being in jail. It ain't about him being a convicted felon. I don't want him to be president of the United States, period, because I think he's divisive, and I think he will serve to divide America. I have a point on this. People always come out and say he's this divisive figure, and I've even used that term, I think, over the years. But Trump's only as divisive as people like Stephen A. and the long-standing mainstream media types. He's only as divisive as they make him. They have made him into this divisive figure through things like kangaroo courts and political persecutions and prosecutions. Is that not divisive? I have to ask, is that not divisive? What about calling unarmed people walking through the Capitol insurrectionists? Is that not divisive language? Far more divisive, I would say, than anything Trump has said. What about calling half of Americans deplorables? Let's remember that little gem from Hillary Clinton. Was that not divisive language? And what about cheerleading the people that are the political activists that are burning down cities and taking over government buildings? Is that not divisive? And what about propping up an organization full of grifters in the form of BLM and saying that these are the people that are standing for true rights and freedom? Is that not divisive? So it's the old adage that whatever they accuse you of is what they themselves are doing, and that's what we see in nearly every instance between the mainstream media and Donald Trump. What they accuse him of, they themselves are doing. They say he is divisive, but they are the ones who are dividing us. And I kind of see Donald Trump as this wedge, right? And he further separates those of us who just want to live our lives. We want to live in our constitutional representative republic, live our lives in peace. But then there's other people like Stephen A. Smith who tacitly want to support the old way of politics. And the old way of politics is what got us spending that's out of control, government operating unimpeded by the electorate. We have intel agencies and I mean, let's use insider trading as an example. Insider trading, we know that it's wrong. We see that it's wrong. We want it to be fixed, but Congress isn't going to fix it. They are separated from the electorate. funding of businesses with lobbyists. We see the defense contractors and the scientific and technological elites, and we see all these big industries that are getting our money, our taxpayer dollars, whose bottom lines are being held firm by our taxpayer dollars. We know that that's wrong. We don't like that that's happening, but they operate independent of the electorate. We see bureaucrats and we see government representatives. Well, we can use the president of the United States himself when he was the vice president, leveraging taxpayer money, congressionally approved funds to essentially extort a foreign leader in order to stop an investigation into his son's business, which was a corrupt business. Is that not divisive? And so these people want to go back to the old days of just this almost Valium-induced, comatose maybe state of observing government. Like, yeah, government's going on, but I'm not really worried about it. Nobody's overly political. Well, they have forced this on us. They have forced us into this position of being loud, of voting for people like Donald Trump, who see that the system is broken, and then they complain about it when we're vocal, when we elect somebody who's actually standing up for us. And it's not just that. They don't just get mad at us. They attack him with kangaroo courts, with trumped up charges, and all we want at the end of the day is accountability. It's all we want. We're held accountable. The IRS holds us accountable. Federal law enforcement will hold us accountable, but the federal law enforcement is one of the things that we need to fix because it's been weaponized. Just look at Merrick Garland. Having DOJ staking out and monitoring parents going to school board meetings because that's a threat. They're standing up against the system. So that must mean that they are part of the problem. That must mean that they are the enemy to the system, which means that the DOJ needs to be leveraged against them. President Obama, he assassinated an American citizen on foreign soil without due process. We want accountability. Joe Biden profiting off of public office and using taxpayer money, as I said before, to extort a world leader and drop an investigation into his son's business partners. Hillary Clinton mishandling TSSCI communications on her personal servers. We want accountability because that's obviously against the law, or not obviously, it is against the law. Hillary Clinton profiting from foreign entities like the Saudis when she was in public office, when she was the Secretary of State. We want accountability. Insider trading, I mentioned it before, but watch the documentary that The Blaze had. It's called Bought and Paid For. It's on YouTube. Go look at that one. That's very enlightening, very enlightening. Follow Unusual Whales on social media. We know that insider trading is wrong. We want accountability. We want more than a $200 fine when you do it. When they're making hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars, they pay a $200 fine. It's a drop in the bucket. We want more than that. We want accountability. Anthony Fauci, who now we know after two weeks ago, I did a video where an NIH official said under penalty of perjury that yes, the NIH paid for gain of function research in the Wuhan lab. Anthony Fauci knew this. Anthony Fauci lied. He perjured himself. We want accountability. Andrew Cuomo put senior citizens and COVID patients together into the rooms, led to the 10 to 15,000 deaths in New York. We want accountability. Alejandro Mayorkas has turned, with this flood of immigrants, he has turned a federal law enforcement agency into a human trafficking ring. We want accountability. And like I said before, Merrick Garland weaponizing the DOJ against political opposition. We want accountability. And it's everywhere. We see it over and over and over again. I sit and listen to congressional testimony on a regular basis, and it's so painfully obvious. People like Stephen A. still want to go back to the days where it's mundane, comatose, political involvement. Political involvement on Valium, essentially. When we can't, we have to be mobilized and we have to be involved. We have to be vocal. And we want accountability. We need a strong AG. We need a strong FBI director, CIA director, NSA director. People need to be in charge of organizations that they want to see cut by half. I'll give them a little bit of grace and say they want to cut them by 25%. Let's start there. But people that also aren't afraid to make enemies, and that's what Donald Trump, I believe, can do in a second term, now that he understands the swamp. And so the thing that I was going to bring up was Gerald, and this is from Louder with Crowder. He's the CEO of Louder with Crowder, and and Lane, I guess, is another guy. I haven't watched them in a long time. Apologies for that, I guess. But sometimes I agree with him, sometimes I don't. But at the end of the day, he made a comment and he said that we should not become what we hate. And he's talking about passing laws just willy-nilly, going out and trying to find prosecutions in retribution for what happened to Donald Trump. And with that, or to that, I agree. I agree that we should not be just going out and finding la-di-da-di everybody, rounding them up and putting them in prison. That's what the Democrats are doing with Donald Trump. That's what the Democrats did with the January 6th defendants. That's not the way that we are going to carry things out. But what we have to do is use the system, use our majority when we have a majority to do what the Democrats have done and change the laws that will move us not towards the left, which is what always happens. When you talk about just as something simple, 51 votes for justices, or for federal judge appointments, we can get with 51 votes in the Senate, we can confirm federal judges. The Democrats did that, and they did that so that they could cram as many as possible into the system. Well, when we had the majority, we did the same thing, and they were whooping and hollering, and it was all terrible. And so we were able to get a lot of judges in. Trump did a really good job with that. But they do it for these moments. They have power because they are mobilized. They say all we need is the 51 votes for this. They end the filibuster. All of these things that they have, all these stipulations that they have put into the process, and they are mobilized. So when they do get the majority, they can flood the system with all this leftist stuff, with all this socialist stuff, with all this authoritarian stuff. On the other hand, we are the ones that want to remove regulation, that want to remove all this authoritarian nonsense, things like Obamacare. We're supposed to be the ones that want to remove Obamacare, but we don't. We sit on our hands. And so we have to become active like the left has become active. When we have a majority, we need to start changing the rules. Not in an unconstitutional way, but in a way that will get us away from authoritarianism, away from this leftist. Authoritarian is the best way to put it, to get us away from that and towards the Constitution, things that are going to remove regulation, that are going to remove laws, not add to. And some things we could do is we could make insider trading a Class A felony. That'd be easy. Make insider trading a felony. That's a start. Because Congress is constantly worried about laws that affect the people, but they walk around with near immunity. Nothing that affects them. Show us that you're willing to regulate yourself. Show us that you are actually representing us, and that when you get to the swamp, you realize that it's a disgusting place and it needs to be cleaned up. So start regulating yourselves. Will they do that? Well, if they're not willing to, then they got to be gone. Get them out of office. Vote them out of office. And so this is what people expect from Trump. And how are they showing it? How are they showing that they support Donald Trump? By $53 million. $53 million. This is a one-day record for political donations. Absolutely insane. And I think I reported yesterday that the site crashed. So right after the guilty verdict was read, the Give or Win Red, which is the Republican version of Act Blue, which is the donation site. Think of it as a payment processor for political donations. They announced Friday evening that they raised a record-setting $52.8 million in one day after former President Donald Trump was found guilty by a Manhattan jury in DA Alvin Bragg's falsified business records case on Thursday. The historic announcement was made in a statement in which the Trump campaign said that more than one-third of donations received were from new donors to the campaign. New donors, one-third, 33%, over 30%, are people that have never donated before. That's massive. And you're talking about small donations. It's $2 million an hour that he was making. What does that tell you about the electorate? That says this guy he's got this uncanny ability to be a billionaire and still relate to the common man, to still come across as a representative of the people, of the hardworking people, and the guys that are, making $20 an hour, $15 an hour, guys working on a road crew, guys laying brick, guys, doing all this actual hard labor, who don't have a lot of money to throw around because this Joe Biden economy has absolutely wrecked them. We're still willing to come out and throw money towards the one guy they think can fix it. And yet Stephen A. in his multi-million-dollar contracts doesn't get that. He says, nah, he's divisive. So says the guy who pushes the divisive language on a regular basis. Donald Trump's just standing up for the people. Absolutely unbelievable. Biden, as a comparison, Biden raised $53 million since April. Trump did that in one day because the people are sick and tired. They're sick and tired of being sick and tired. It's the old saying. Well, Hillary Clinton, of course, she's gloating about it. Here's another rich lady who pretends to be of the people. Just hours after Donald Trump was found guilty on all counts in the falsified business records, Hillary Clinton told a crowd of attendees at an awards ceremony with a smirk, anything going on today? And it's the Clinton who just who lost to Trump in the 2016 election, still complains about the loss to this day, was met with a roar of cheers from the audience at Vital Voices Global Partnership 23rd Annual Global Leadership Awards in Washington, D.C. So people going up there and pontificating and, bloviating about themselves, going to these fancy award ceremonies. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is getting drug in and out of the courthouse, getting absolutely lambasted by the media, and he gets $53 million in one day. This lady has no idea. This lady is so detached from reality. She said, "We recently had some new merch made based on a phrase I hear a lot. The design happened to be finalized today. With your purchase, you'll support Onward Together groups defending democracy and get a pretty great mug to sip tea from," Clinton wrote on Instagram. And what does that thing say? Turns out she was right about everything. What a narcissist. They want to call Trump a narcissist. Turns out she was right about everything. This woman she's been a disgrace to the political system in her career. She's an absolute disgrace to the political system, to our institutions. So she puts her face on a mug. That's what she does. Crazy. But I mean, they continue to try to shut Donald Trump up. This is from NBC News. Oops, I just lost it. Special counsel again asked for modified release conditions for Trump in classified documents case. So they still try to shut him up. They found him guilty. It's not going to stop. This political onslaught is going to continue. But special counsel Jack Smith on Friday asked the judge, so at the same time that he's being convicted of a felony, he, on the same day, asked the judge overseeing former President Donald Trump's classified documents case in Florida to bar him from making statements that endanger law enforcement. So if he makes anything inflammatory, that's endangering law enforcement. The filing marks the second motion from Smith in days, urging U.S. District Judge Eileen Cannon to modify Trump's conditions of release in the case. And like the motion before, Friday's motion was based on Trump's false claims. Of course, this is coming from NBC, so they're going to say Trump's false claims. They got to inject that one in there, about FBI agents being prepared to kill him during the 2022 Mar-a-Lago search for classified documents. What we realized is it was released that they had a an authorized lethal use of force directive, essentially. When they went to do the Mar-a-Lago raid, they were authorized to use lethal force against the President of the United States, the same guy who had been cooperating with the National Archives, storing those classified documents, the same guy who had them locked away, in the same case where we know now that the FBI had placed secret labels before taking photos, had placed secret document covers on the evidence so that they could release that to the public. Falsification of documents. That's falsification of documents by the FBI. We now know that is a fact. And they're saying, no. We can't let him say anything about this because it'll endanger law enforcement. The same ones who doctored evidence to try to get a prosecution, to try to get him off the campaign trail. It's not going to stop. And it's unbelievable. I listened to some CNN people and they were pontificating about Trump and, how he handled the guilty verdict. And they did this dramatic reading about, look, Donald Trump this is just another thing. It's just another thing for Trump. Well, when I talk about accountability, what do we want to see? We, the people, want to see accountability. And Biden says he's not at all worried that he could be prosecuted after leaving office. This was actually great. Peter Ducey, and I'll in fact bring this video up for you. I should have pulled it, but I didn't.
Helps Trump.
Peter Ducey does, is it Peter Ducey? I think that's right. He does an amazing job just calling people out and getting the sound bites. But here, let's go ahead and watch this.
Election. Are you worried that this could happen to you someday? Somebody comes up with some charges and tries to bring you into court after your term?
Not at all. I didn't do anything wrong.
I didn't do anything wrong.
And when Trump says you're just trying to bruise him, what do you say? Politically, he thinks you're pulling the strings behind the scenes, doing all this to help yourself.
I didn't know I was that powerful.
You're exactly right. I didn't know I was that powerful. Who says that you're pulling behind the scenes, pulling strings? I didn't know I was that powerful, because he's not pulling the strings. Joe Biden is not pulling the strings. Joe Biden is not the one running this country right now. And I don't know how much more obvious it could be, but people still question it. But that is the question. When Donald Trump gets into office, will there be any ramifications for Joe Biden and his illegal activities? He's not worried about it. He's been in the system for 40 years. He has nothing to worry about. He has absolutely nothing to worry about. And he's so confident of it. He's so confident. Well, we can talk about Alex Soros next. When you want to talk about people that are pulling the strings. Now, I'm not saying that Alex Soros is the sole guy pulling the strings. His dad has pulled a lot of strings over the years. And Alex Soros, the son and heir of Democrat megadonor George Soros, who's given hundreds of millions of dollars. He doesn't care about squandering, and I won't even say squandering, spending his fortune on turning this into a borderless globalist world. We know that that's what they want, and we know he has raised his son to have those same ideals. But he urged Democrats to refer to Trump as a convicted felon at every opportunity to try and sway voters. This follows Trump's conviction on 34 counts after falsification of business records, blah, 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 blah. Democrats should refer to Trump as a convicted felon at every opportunity, wrote Soros. Here's the actual tweet. Repetition is the key to a successful message, and we want people to wrestle with the notion of hiring a convicted felon for the most important job in the country. This is why it was intentional. They don't have to put him in prison. A lot of people that get these charges like Trump has, they don't go to prison. Some have, most don't, because it's the lowest level of felony. They just need to have the messaging right. Trump is a convicted felon. It's all they needed. At the end of the day, that's all they needed. And this little amoeba here knows that, which is why he and his family funded the people who made it happen. Now they got the message they want, and they want the Democrat Party to run with it. Soros included a link to a Substack piece titled, "How Trump's Conviction Could Cost Him the Election." This is just part of it. They're going to continue with this. Is going to be convicted felon Donald Trump, convicted felon and former president, convicted felon and former president, over and over and over and over again. All they needed was the message. But we're going to see op-eds. We are going to see news commentators on every major platform saying that he's a convicted felon and using that as the messaging between now and November. Obviously, Donald Trump being convicted of a felony does not have the effect that they think. The American people are smarter than they think. And I love it. I love it. Over here, strongly worded statements. This is something that Mike Lee and some other folks came up with. They basically put out where did I put that news article? Oops, hang on. Okay, all right, here it is. So GOP senators vow not to cooperate with Dems after Trump's conviction. We are no longer cooperating with any Democrat legislative priorities or nominations, and we will invite all concerned senators to join our stand. So several GOP senators signed a letter Friday saying that the White House has made a mockery of the rule of law and therefore will no longer comply with the Democrat legislative priorities for budget increases or nominations relating to judicial matters. This comes after a Manhattan jury found, blah, blah, blah. So Mike Lee says, strongly worded statements are not enough. Those who turned our judicial system into a political cudgel must be held accountable. We are no longer cooperating with any Democrat legislative priorities or nominations, and we invite all concerned senators to join our stand. The White House has made a mockery of the rule of law and fundamentally altered our politics. in un-American ways. As a Senate Republican conference, we are unwilling to aid and abet this White House in its project to tear this country apart. To that end, we will, 1, not allow any increase to non-security related funding for this administration. So obviously they're still going to pay for the military-industrial complex, or any appropriations bill which funds partisan lawfare. And 2, vote to confirm this administration's political and judicial appointees. Okay. And 3, allow expedited consideration and passage of Democrat legislation or authorities that are not directly relevant to the safety of the American people. Now, this is kind of open-ended verbiage. I get that. But at least these people are saying, well, look, strongly worded letters, I got it, they're correct, are not enough. This is what they do. They sign memos and say, this is us taking action. These guys are saying, we're not going to do anything. We're going to stop any of your pet projects, stop any of the legislation that you want to have carried forward. And I think if more people get on board with this, it will be effective. But I don't think we have enough people in the Senate for this to have any teeth. It's just them posturing behind Donald Trump saying, I did this, but the swamp runs deep in the Senate. And I don't think that it has the legs that they believe it's going to. I really don't. And that's a disappointment because, you know, I respect Mike Lee. I respect a lot of J.D. Vance. I don't know. The jury's still out for me on J.D. Vance. But at the end of the day, at least they're doing something. And so I'm appreciative of that, or appreciative for that. So the final thing I'm going to talk about is political grifters. And political grifters, people like Chris Cuomo. Chris Cuomo is most definitely a political grifter, and he's obviously was on CNN with Don Lemon and all the, you know, and the Brian Stelter and other weirdos like that. And he went from being a divisive political commentator on, you know, mainstream media, bought and paid for sort of guy, to being a divisive political commentator on the internet. That's basically what he's done. But he's tried to change his persona and say that I just want to have conversations. And shame on Patrick Bet-David sometimes. I mean, he's probably got his own reasoning for hiring this guy or bringing him on the PBD podcast and being part of that great up and coming network. But I do not understand the Chris Cuomo thing, because Chris Cuomo is not nearly as smart as he lets himself or as he depicts himself to be. And he's a hypocrite. Above all, the guy's a hypocrite. And if you remember, he came out against Joe Rogan, who was taking ivermectin whenever he had COVID. And Cuomo and Don Lemon sat and talked about, oh, you know, this is just him taking horse dewormer, and he's telling other people to take horse dewormer. And Dave Smith calls him out on it during this recent debate that the two of them had on the Patrick Bet-David podcast. And so I want you to listen to his verbal gymnastics. I want you also to listen to some of the points that Dave Smith is making. But this is how Chris Cuomo is incapable of actually changing. This is why I say he went from being a divisive political commentator to another divisive political commentator. He's just trying to rebrand himself. But at the end of the day, he was wrong about something and refuses to admit that he was wrong, cannot admit that he's wrong, because he is a narcissist and because he's someone that cannot and should not be trusted. He hasn't, maybe eventually, but at this point, absolutely not. So listen to this real quick.
Yeah, okay, so again, to take on what you just said, no, not everyone, and not everyone who gets paid. Joe Rogan is bigger than every single show at CNN combined and gets paid more than every single person at CNN combined. And he was 100% right about this thing through the entire time.
No, he wasn't.
Yes, he
No, he wasn't.
Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on, let me get this point out here.
Tell me what he was right about.
Okay, how about, you know what you just revealed last month on Pat's show about ivermectin?
Yeah.
Joe Rogan was saying that, and you were smearing him for saying that.
Yeah.
You literally said he's taking horse dewormer.
Yes.
He should be ashamed of himself. You pleaded with your audience to not take it.
Yes.
Then you come back around and you go, hey, Pat, you know what I just found out? Turns out this thing isn't for animals. Turns out humans are. But Chris, a 5-minute Google search and you would have known that.
First of all,
how do you not apologize to Joe Rogan?
Listen, do you know who disagrees with you? Do you know who disagrees with you? The people who make ivermectin disagree with you.
Hold on. What do they disagree with me about?
That the drug should not be taken as a standalone for COVID-19.
I never said it should.
That's what Rogan was saying.
No. He did not. No, listen. See, this is the thing, Chris.
Yeah,
that is a lie. That is a blatant lie.
What did he say?
Rogan, so you just pretended that I said it's a standalone for COVID. No. Here's what it always was. Here's what Joe Rogan said. My doctor prescribed it to me. along with several other medications, just like your doctor prescribed it to you. That's what he said. What I'm saying is that it's not horse dewormer, as you and everybody else at CNN mindlessly repeated.
Now,
what he said, no, let me finish.
Go
what
ahead.
he said, and what I'm saying is that it is a medicine that's been prescribed to people millions and I think billions of times, and it was totally demonized. Why? You already said why. You said it 2 years too late, but you already said why. You'll never get COVID.
I'm not blaming Rogan. Here's what happened.
You should be apologizing
and
to him.
again, listen.
Yeah.
Here's what happened. Here's what happened. Also, let me tell you why I think apologies in this context are a stunt, okay? We don't accept apologies. Nobody accepts apologies except as an admission that you weaponize. That's why Trump never apologizes. He's right. Because if you apologize, everybody just beats you over the head with.
Trump's got a lot to apologize for, and so do you.
I'm just saying, as a concept, and you should too on this, and I'll tell you why.
What should I apologize
Here's
for?
what happened. Ivermectin, it wasn't because the media said don't take it, so everyone took it. The media would have never been talking about it unless people were taking it. Use your head. So here's what happens. They're prescribing it like crazy. They actually stop physicians from being able to prescribe it, which I think was a mistake. Now, I've been taking it. I don't feel any better. Does that mean it doesn't work? No. But
it's
that's
safe.
why I'm taking
it. It's safe and it's not horse-based.
It is definitely
So what is
safe,
it-
but it's not horse-based because it's not horse-based.
But
that is horse-based.
By the way, no one ever at CNN during this time, when they were all saying it's horse dewormer, everyone was repeating, no one ever said, we're talking about the veterinarian ivermectin.
That's because-
We're not talking about the ivermectin that doctors prescribe.
Right.
No one ever said that. But listen, you told me I should apologize. So what do you think I should apologize for? And then I'll tell you what I think you should apologize for.
I know what you think I should apologize for. Obviously, there was so much talk that they don't want you to take ivermectin. Ivermectin is the way to go. Take it. Joe Rogan got better from ivermectin. And by the way, I don't like what people did to Joe Rogan about ivermectin. I don't like
You did it.
No. Okay,
Yes, you did.
Find the clips.
But, dude, find the clips. You shamed Joe Rogan.
Find the
you
clips.
said he's taking horse dewormer. You and Don Lemon were chuckling at each other about it.
No,
I'll go find
first
the
of all,
clip.
you just saw the
I
clips.
watched
I'm
it.
not chuckling. I'm listening to Don. But
No,
here's
the clip
point.
I'm talking about wasn't on there, and it's absolutely there. Here, do we have it? Hold on, let's play the clip.
Injecting drugs for animals and horse.
And people telling them to. Oh my God. What person? You talk about cancel culture and who to shame. Ivermectin, a dewormer, really?
They are shaming themselves.
That's what it is.
They're shaming themselves.
So you're taking a dewormer right now.
This
Chris.
is
Chris,
a
you can't
dewormer.
apologize for that. You weren't being clear that it was this, and you know that, dude. You're being so dishonest right now, man.
I'm not
You
being
were talking about ivermectin, the drug. You were not talking about this version of ivermectin. Come on,
I
man.
was responding to a situation where we were told that this is what people were searching out to take, and nobody knew what it was going to do to them. Look, I'm taking the drug right now. Obviously, I don't think it's all poison. I stopped calling it the horse drug when, and you can not like it, CNN's chief medical officer, who is Sanjay Gupta, said to me, you shouldn't just call it a horse dewormer. There's a whole legitimate aspect of the drug. I wouldn't use it for COVID-19, but it's not just the veterinary grade. So I stopped calling it that.
So, okay.
And then it went away.
By the way, I don't know if you guys saw this. One of the best moments during the pandemic was when Dr. Gupta, who was just mentioned, went on Joe Rogan's podcast. For all the days of CNN, demonizing Joe Rogan, they send their top doctor out there onto his show, and he goes, why is everyone on your network saying I'm taking horse dewormer? Ivermectin's not. And Dr. Gupta looked down at his lap and went, yeah, no, they shouldn't be saying that.
Well, Sanjay was the one who corrected
there was a better,
Sanjay was the one who corrected us.
But no, actually, after that, he went back and laughed as Don Lemon called it horse dewormer again, and then I guess later corrected you guys. But then there was a moment, and this was the best moment. You got to remember the context of this. This was during the vaccine passports. Okay, the point when the people like me, and I'm sure a lot of you, were basically turned into second-class citizens, weren't allowed to go into restaurants, weren't allowed to go to sporting events, weren't allowed to go into a lot of different office buildings, things like that, and you, personally, along with everyone at CNN, cheered that on. You mused and joked around when you were interviewing Dr. Fauci about what rights the unvaccinated should have. So Dr. Gupta goes to Joe Rogan and says, it is in the middle of all this. He goes, so you're going to get the vaccine? And Joe goes, no. I just had COVID. Why would I get it? I got natural immunity. It's stronger than the vaccine. And Dr. Gupta went, yeah, that's a good point.
So, look, at the end of the day, Chris Cuomo, he's a guy who played into the whole COVID system. He played into the whole leftist narrative. And now he's trying to rebrand himself because that obviously didn't work for him. He was at a horribly rated show. And yeah, he made his millions. That's all, well and good, all that. But he's trying to come back and be some, star-studded representative of, open conversation and open dialogue. And at the end of the day, the guy still can't admit that he was wrong. The guy can't admit that he had slammed somebody for something that he is now taking. So he's taking ivermectin as part of a long COVID regimen of drugs and whatnot. And so, yeah, this is a guy who has at every turn proven himself to be a political grifter. We have seen zero evidence that he's moving in a different direction. So we have to approach grifters like that or people who appear to be grifters with a great deal of caution. With a great deal of caution. And Dave Smith, who's the other guy that he was debating, he's a libertarian. You know, I told you that the Libertarian Party has now been infected by leftism because this is who the Libertarian Party decided to, instead of going with Dave Smith, somebody who is articulate, who is able to actually debate, who can bring facts and information to a debate, incredibly intelligent guy, they select a gay, Antifa-loving, Trump-hating, vaccine mandate-supporting, open borders enthusiast as their presidential candidate. The Libertarian Party has selected their preferred presidential candidate after a tumultuous weekend that saw speech from RFK Jr. and Donald Trump. The nominee is none other than Chase Oliver, the Antifa-loving drag queen story hour backing, vaccine mandate-supporting, open border enthusiast who hates Trump. Oliver, who describes himself as armed and gay, has a history of taking radically left positions. And he won with 60% of the vote. So I don't know what this guy said. I didn't listen to his speech, but he said, "I will continue to bring hopeful and positive message of liberty to both those who consider themselves libertarian and those who don't know they are libertarian yet." He also pledged his party cohorts that we can set the world free in our lifetime and would end the genocide in Gaza. So on top of that, he's anti-Israel. This shows you that leftism it's a true infection. This is an infection that spreads very, very easily. And when the Libertarian Party, for all their silliness that goes on in the Libertarian Party, when this is the guy that they decide to hire or that they decide to become their candidate, you know that party has a long way to go to fight back towards actual libertarianism. Because we all know that Antifa, calling themselves anti-fascists, he claimed the label of being anti-fascist, and so he supported the Stop Cop City movement. He had posts for that. He says he had another post that said, "You don't have to be pro-communist to be anti-fascist." Look, y'all, we have to be careful about the people that are in our parties. We have to be careful about the policies that we push. Just because they have a big R or they have an R in front of them doesn't mean they are good for us. Just because if you're a Democrat, just because they have a D in front of them doesn't mean they are good for us. Just because it's coming from a libertarian doesn't mean that it's good for us. We have to be the discerning minds. We have to be aware of what our politicians are doing, and we have to try, it would behoove all of us to try and avoid activists like this becoming our representatives, becoming those that are supposed to be leading our country. I mean, anybody that's going to post something like this, "Give me autonomy and property rights," you mean. A business can decide to require workers to be vaccinated or limit customers to those with a vaccine. But no, government shouldn't make those decisions. This will hurt already struggling small businesses. He's for vaccine mandates. That's essentially what he's saying. I'm for vaccine mandates, and that's supposed to be the representative for the Libertarian Party. So I just say all that to say that no party is immune from being infected with leftism, with leftists. And we as conservatives have to stave that off because they're going to be coming for conservatives. Big R Republicans, they're infected with them. The Democrat Party is completely full of them. The Libertarian Party has been infected, and the conservative movement just has to be aware. We just have to be aware, and we have to be cautious. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave comments below. We're on X Locals, Rumble, and YouTube, and we'll see you in the next video. God bless you all.